Okay, thank you so much, Jessica, for talking me in, and great to see some people already joining us. Thank you a lot. For the next round, the session length is around 40 minutes, so we'll leave good time for some questions in the end. But today I want to talk to you about a bit about AI and security, and especially security operations. So without a further ado, let's get started. So first of all, hello to everyone. My name is Miska. I'm from Finland, as you can probably see, because my name has weird characters. I work as an information security specialist at 2NS, which is a Finnish small-ish cybersecurity company. My interests mostly revolve around the two topics that I'm talking about today, which is AI and cybersecurity. In my day-to-day work, I work a lot with customers building especially security operations centers and kind of the technical monitoring for cybersecurity and environments. In the past few years, I've also worked a lot in some of the biggest AI implementations in Finland, usually working from the cybersecurity side on making sure everything's secure. But what really gets me going and keeps me excited in this field is always searching for that next big thing, which for a couple of years now has been AI, and especially AI and security. So that's what I've been mostly focused on. You can check out my blog if you want to. The link's right there. And of course, you can connect with me on LinkedIn if you are able to type in my name. So what I really want to talk about today is basically the state of, first of all, the state of AI in cybersecurity right now. What is working, what is not working, so on. Then I want to really dive into the issue of why using AI in cybersecurity and security operations is really not as perhaps easy as people talked it out to be a couple of years ago. And then we're going to also talk about how to do it anyway, even though some people think you cannot. But diving into it all head first, I want to get everyone on the same page. And so what is security operations in general? Basically, when we talk about security operations, or SecOps, as it's usually shortened to, it's basically the people and the processes that keep organizations safe from a cybersecurity front. That means that there's people and software for responding to threats and cybersecurity incidents that happen. Maybe someone gets a phishing email sent to them, or someone's password gets leaked, or someone gets a virus on their computer. The person is responding to that and defending the company are the security operations people. Usually we organize them in something called a SOC, which means a Security Operations Center, which is basically a centralized place for these people who work there that monitor the environment from their security systems. Classically, these have been basically a 24/7 operation with people sitting on computers every hour of the day in shifts. But that has been changing a little bit in the past few years, because you can imagine that training people on a very skilled role that security operations is, you have to be quite skilled to do it. And then as to do night shifts is not something that people usually very much enjoy, and it gets very expensive. But talking about AI, what is the state in cybersecurity right now? Well, we've seen already that AI has already kind of gone, I think we've gone over the main excitement and hype that was AI in the modern work industry. Like a year ago, we probably got over that already. But in cybersecurity, we're not yet there, because the field's much more slowly moving. It's not so much built around specific vendors whereas you think modern work, you think Office 365, it's basically Microsoft having the whole market share. But in security, it's much more distributed to many more vendors. But what we've seen in cybersecurity is that attackers are utilizing AI more and more. We've seen over the past couple of years that, for example, phishing messages or emails sent to you have drastically improved in quality. They're no longer so bad, have many different typos and stuff like that. It's becoming much more polished and also much more targeted, because now an attacker can utilize AI to create thousands of highly customized spear phishing emails where it can be very customized to the organization it's being sent to, whereas before that would have taken way too much time. Also, we've seen it utilized in other ways, like I have on the screenshot here, which is from around a month ago, I think, where people have discovered the first ransomware programs that actually utilize AI to, every single time they get thrown onto a new computer, it utilizes local AI and LLMs to rewrite itself so that antivirus programs do not grab onto it so easily. So clearly, we're seeing that attackers are using the technology, which means that defenders have to also get on board and start using this technology. Microsoft Security Copilot has been out for like 1.5 years now. It's a big part of the progress driving the industry forward, especially in the Microsoft world. But let's talk a bit about Security Copilot. It's, like I said, it's been out for 1.5 years already. So it's not necessarily a new product anymore. And we've already learned that it's quite normal for Microsoft to roll out products in a state where they're not fully done or fully finished yet. We saw that with M365 Copilot. We saw that with Microsoft Whiteboard, for example. Time and time again, they just roll them out and then it slowly gets better. And that's what it's been with Security Copilot as well. It has improved since release, but it hasn't been a huge step forward. But now, recently, in the past few months, they've been coming out with these Security Copilot agents, which really seem like a step forward and, in my opinion, a step in the right direction for the tool. Unfortunately, still, Security Copilot in general is really held down by the pricing structure and the pricing decisions that Microsoft have made. If you're not familiar with the tool, basically, Security Copilot is built on an hourly billing basis, and it costs you more and more per hour for how much you're using it, because you can provision an amount of compute units, and basically to get the full effect out of it, you have to have it running 24/7, which means that in the smallest configurations, you're talking about almost $10,000 a month. So you can just think about that and see why I'm saying that it's too expensive for small companies to use, which is kind of counterintuitive, because if you think of an AI product created for security professionals, who would it benefit the most? Well, it would be the small companies who don't have that many people, who don't have that much time on their day to do these kinds of things. So they would benefit from it the most, but there are the one group of people that cannot really utilize it because it's too expensive. But in other ways as well, AI hasn't been that much implemented in security and security operations yet. And that's usually because if you look at conversations around the topic, they say that you just cannot really do it. And why is that? Well, they always say that it's very hard. to implement AI in security operations, and that's partly true. And why is that? Well, it's because security operations is a field that's 100% fueled by experience. Because when we're talking about spotting a cyber attack in your environment, usually the difference between a false positive that you have seen thousands of times and that true positive that could bring down your entire company, the difference can be very small and minute. So you require a lot of experience to know what is normal and then to know when things are not normal. And that just takes years of practice and experience to get down. So that is because the differences can be very small. The chance that AI might actually miss something that's very important is bigger and bigger. But I think one of the biggest problems why AI hasn't been really implemented is that there's a question around the accountability of its decision making. Because in security operations, it's a trust business, meaning that you have to be able to trust the people that are monitoring your environment to make the right decisions. If they think that there's a risk that a computer or a user account has been compromised, it's their responsibility to close that account or computer down immediately so it doesn't cause any more damage. But if an AI is making that decision and it makes the wrong decision of closing down an account that really hasn't done anything bad, or then deciding not to close something down when it's clearly being compromised, who is responsible for that? That is a big question that also has made vendors in the security operations field very wary of implementing AI because they don't want to be held accountable for its failures. And we've seen over the past couple of years attempts at bringing AI into security, and there have been usual things where it has failed. Basically, when the main thing that we look at in security operations is that we get logs from all of the systems that you use, and then you look through those logs and try to see what's wrong. Well, usually the AI in the past has been making very bad decisions, just saying that things are a risk when they're not. And that's usually just fueled by the AI system not having enough context. Also, of course, with AI, you sometimes get hallucinations. It can hallucinate that some program that it sees or a process on a computer is actually malware when it's not. And that's also fueled by just not having enough context or content to pull from. Or it's hampered and held back by not being able to access all of the right data that it actually should access. And also that's fueled by just not building the right integrations for the AI system. So I think you might be seeing a pattern that's building on here, why usually the AI implementations have failed. And because the important part in security operations is always that context matters. It's the most important part of the whole decision-making process in the SOC. It's because you need to know the bigger picture to be able to make informed and educated decisions on what to do. Now, I have a few examples here. On the left, you're seeing Microsoft's Defender XDR portal, which is where we get all of these alerts about what's happening in your environment. And you can see that we have a multi-stage incident here, meaning that there's more than one alert pertaining to the same user. And if you look here a bit closer, you can actually see if I can get myself a laser pointer. There we go. If you look over here, you can see that there are 3 alerts here. First of all, someone logs in outside of Finland with a failed with an account that has had failed multi-factor authentications happen at the same time. After that, 45 minutes later, there's a new service principal or application added to Azure, meaning an application that someone can use to authenticate into their environment. And then you can see that they added a new access credential, basically a password to that application, so they can always get in through that. You look at this on its own, maybe the log rows that these are coming from. So you have 1 line of logs, 2 lines of log, 3 lines of logs here. This looks very concerning. So if you go and just give those logs to ChatGPT, here's GPT-5, and it's using its thinking and all of that, and it looks at all of the alerts it's getting and saying that this is very much a high risk scenario and it should be treated as a true positive. This is 100% a true positive case where you need to do something. So you should immediately, for example, close down this account, delete this application, and so on. But if we go back to the thing, what I said earlier, which is context matters, what a human analyst would have asked here, we call these people who work in the SOC, we call them analysts because they analyze the logs. So what would a human ask in this scenario when they see this? First of all, they would look at the user that logged in and ask, okay, what has this user done before? Is this normal activity for the user? Where is the user usually located? How are all of these alert rules configured? Are there perhaps some cases where they could give out false positives in some cases where something isn't that much wrong? Or how have these kinds of incidents been handled in the past, meaning that the human analysts usually can check or they remember if these specific rules have given out false positives before. Then they could ask, okay, what is the role of this user in our organization? Is it someone from the HR team? Is it an executive? Or is it perhaps a developer? Because you can know that developers sometimes do much more risky things with their accounts rather than some normal employee. And also here, when we're adding an application, what is this application actually used for? You can see its name here, but you don't really know what it's used for. So you should search out for that, or perhaps if you have a knowledge base for your company, check out what is the application actually used for. Because if a human analyst would ask all of these questions, it would find out that, okay, this user is a developer that's creating an auditing product, and they would figure out that this login rule has not been configured very well and it's giving out a lot of false positives in the past. They would see that these kinds of new access credential alerts have been ruled as a benign true positive, meaning that the rules are working as according to how they're meant to be, but it wasn't a risky operation. It was something expected. And then they would figure out that, okay, this is a developer. And what is this application that is part of the incident here? Well, it's an app used for testing some automated security auditing things. So of course it needs a lot of, for example, consented access rights to the organization. So what you see here happening is that context matters, where in this case, ChatGPT thought, looking at this, that this is definitely a true positive. If you start looking at it a bit more deeper and getting the context around all of these things that are part of this incident, you slowly realize that it's not a true positive in the end. And here we get to the important part of security operations and AI, is do not try to replace the human. That's what we've learned already in modern work a year and a half ago, when we first looked at Copilot and understood that, okay, this doesn't replace a human. We're still a bit trying to do the same in security, where we still haven't figured out that you shouldn't throw the human out of the equation. You should just empower the human to do things that they couldn't do before without AI. Because AI can be used as a tool that really helps the human analyst, but it shouldn't try to replace the human altogether. And in general, it wouldn't be wise to just replace all of these humans who have a lot of very specific skills in cybersecurity, which is a very demanded field to this day. So how would you try to empower the human with AI? Well, there are a couple of things you could use. First of all, you could use Security Copilot. And the great thing about it is that there are integrations already that exist. All of the systems that we talked about here, where we would have gotten this context, it would be our Entra ID sign-in logs, it would be our Azure, it would be perhaps a company knowledge base that we have in SharePoint or Confluence, for example. Well, all of those are things that have integrations into Security Copilot, meaning that it can go in and read all of those and get that context that it's needed to triage these incidents properly. However, like we went through before, it's very expensive. So if you're ready to pay for it, then okay. And I think many billion-dollar companies can be paying for it, and it's a rounding error in their accounting. But for the rest of us, we just simply cannot. Then there's Azure AI Foundry, and especially its agent service, where you can do everything from scratch. You can choose your own language model. You can bring in all of the integrations that you want. You can bring in tools you have built to orchestrate things between your security tools and your AI. Or you can, for example, use MCP or Model Context Protocol to tie into tools already existing. Then you can get the knowledge that you want from wherever it is, be it in your SharePoint, be it in some other API, be it in some other systems, and you can build up the perfect cybersecurity AI tool for your company. Of course, that requires some developer knowledge, but it's something that I've seen a couple of companies do, because also one thing that's really important with these kinds of systems is that, of course, we're talking about cybersecurity, so they have to be very secure on their own as well. And when you build everything from scratch, you can make sure that it's very secure. The third option, and something that you can use to get started more easily, is Copilot Studio. Especially now that Copilot Studio has built-in support for MCP. So you can use, right now it's still a bit experimental, but there's a MCP server for Microsoft Sentinel, which is Microsoft's security operations tool that we use. And there are other MCP servers like Loka, which I'm going to talk about very soon. And you can, of course, get that company knowledge base there as well. You all know how easy it is to do basic knowledge base and put an AI on top of that with Copilot Studio. So that's basically the more easily get started way to do this, but also you lose some of the control that you might get with Azure AI Foundry, because here you can decide on absolutely anything you want. One tool that I've worked with quite a bit, and which I have enjoyed actually using myself as a SOC analyst, is the Loka MCP server. This is an MCP server that's been created by a Microsoft employee working on the Microsoft Entra team. And basically, the idea is that this is an MCP server that you can use to interact with the Microsoft Graph API. The Graph API is known to many from M365, from, okay, perhaps even Microsoft Delve, if you remember that. But the Graph API also houses all of the information that you need on the security side. It has all of your knowledge about users. It has their user account information. It has sign-in logs. It has all of that. So you can utilize that within your investigations quite well. And I've seen that it can very much speed up investigation work. So here you can see I've actually asked it, this is me using a Claude desktop, which can use MCP servers quite easily. Basically, what I asked for it is, okay, what are some accounts in this tenant that currently have very high priority permissions that I should probably replace with privileged identity management, or PIM system? And it goes through and checks out, okay, what role assignments would I consider to be high priority or dangerous? And then it checks, okay, what kind of groups or users have those, and gives me a list on, okay, when these users have been created, what is their account type, what is their email address, and they have permanent global admin rights. Now, this is something I could very much go into the portal and check out for myself, but using a tool like this really speeds up the investigation work, especially if you're working in very large environments. If you're working in a small company that has maybe up to 50, maybe 100 users, that's something you can still handle pretty easily through the portals. But if you go up from there to 200, 300, 500, 1,000 users, then having something like this can very much speed up your investigation work, because in many cases, like we went through with the context matters example, the questions that the analyst can ask are pretty simple, but getting that information from the portal can be a task of combining information from many different places. So having a natural language interface for this through MCP, a great idea. And this is something that I've already talked about to a lot of people and said that they need to implement this in some sort of way for their analysts, because it really speeds up their work. And this is exactly what I'm talking about with empowering the user to do more rather than trying to replace them altogether, because it's still the human who's creating these prompts, who's asking the right questions. Another great example is actually kind of changing the tone, something from Microsoft themselves, which is, like I mentioned, Security Copilot is coming out with these agents, and we're finally starting to see the first kind of agents that are actually, they look very promising. So this is called the phishing triage agent, meaning that, well, what it does, well, it triages phishing mails sent to the organization. One of the biggest tasks that takes up time in a bigger company's SOC is that there are so many phishing mails that are sent every single day. Either the automated systems already find them and filter them out and grab them, or then the users themselves are reporting a mail that they've received as a possible phish, and then someone from the security operations department will go through that mail and try to figure out if it's actually a phishing mail, and if it is, should we delete it, should we block the sender altogether, stuff like that. The idea with the phishing triage agent is that we'll take that job out of the human's hands and still keep them in the loop for the approval process. So what the idea is here, that this agent is someone that you can train and customize to every time that an incident comes in, it goes through an investigation process, and in the end, it comes back to the human with a simple summary and saying that, okay, this seems to be a false positive. For example, in this case, a user just reported an email reminding them to register for a conference, and they weren't expecting that mail. So they wanted to be sure and reported it as a phishing. But seems like it's a legitimate conference and a legitimate email, so we should just consider it a false positive. Believe it or not, that exact case is something that happens so much in every single organization, where people are maybe even a bit too paranoid about phishing mails, and they report totally legitimate mails that they just weren't really expecting. But this is what the AI does in the background. If the AI thinks that the email is malicious, it just goes away and deletes it if you want. But if you don't want it to take action, it will just come back to you with what it thinks it should be classified as, and then just say, okay, do that, or then you can override the agent if you think differently. And we here see perhaps one of the best scenarios of we are not trying to replace the human, but rather we're just saving them a lot of time by giving them a second opinion, because you can actually drill into this and you can go through, because the whole agent goes through this tree of investigation of what it actually does. It looks at the email body, it looks at semantically the context of the email, it looks at all of the if it has attachments, it'll look at those, it looks at URLs, goes through all of that. So the human who's coming into this incident can just see, okay, the agent says that this is false positive. They can open up this and go through and see, okay, how does it think that this is a false positive? And if they agree, well, they can just confirm that the agent was right. It saves a lot of time not having to do all of this by hand every single time, because it's very monotonous and these incidents come in all of the time. And the great thing, like I mentioned, is that this can also be trained and customized as much as you want it, saying that if in your company you get a lot of mails that seem like phishing mails, and it's always saying that, okay, this looks very suspicious, you can train it that, okay, in our context, this is actually a legitimate mail and not phishing. So this has been out in public preview for some time, a couple of months now, I think, but I haven't seen it really being rolled out to many organizations yet. And one of the big questions, of course, again, with Security Copilot and anything related to it, is the pricing. How much does it actually cost? And that's something that even Microsoft, even though this product is already out in public preview, even Microsoft haven't really given out like a tangible pricing chart on how much it actually costs to use it. And I think that's pretty problematic, and probably saying that it costs quite a bit. And why am I saying that it costs quite a bit? I can give you an example that I did just a couple of weeks ago. This prompt that I showed here that I did with Claude and this MCP server, what did it cost me? It cost me nothing, of course, because using AI, if you don't have the subscription, it's still free, and the MCP server is free. You didn't pay anything. But I actually did the same prompt with Security Copilot. I provisioned some resources that cost money every hour to run this prompt, and I ran the same prompt. It took a couple of minutes, and it came back with pretty much the same answer, perhaps even a little bit of a better answer, because it can query all of the systems natively. However, if you go in and check how much money did it take, what did it consume, getting that single answer cost me $4, which is absurd for pricing. It just doesn't make any sense. So that's why I'm still a little bit concerned about the pricing of these agents, but they show good precedent for a future where these agents might get slowly rolled out to more and more people and companies, because they really can change how we think about AI in security. So as a conclusion, we might not be replacing SecOps people just yet. And I think that's a good thing. You probably shouldn't replace these people. But however, using AI is slowly becoming a must for efficiency. And I think that it's something that this field really needs, because security operations is a field that doesn't innovate that much. Microsoft innovates with its tools, but many companies providing these services for companies do not really innovate because they don't necessarily have the incentive to do so, because companies are already paying them monthly for the monitoring, and they're paying big amounts. We're talking $10,000 a month or even more. So they don't have to innovate because they're making great money as it is. But also, I would say that slowly, especially if you're monitoring bigger environments, using AI tools like MCP servers is slowly becoming a must, because then other people who use them will surpass you. But one thing that I'm really excited about, especially as a person who has spent a lot of time training up new security operations analysts in the field, is that these AI products may make it much more easier for new people to enter the field, because this has always been a field difficult to enter, and at the same time a field that needs a lot of employees. So getting these new people and putting them through a 6-month to 9-month training program isn't always that feasible. But with AI, they can get started much quicker. And for example, the AI can very much help them, because even though they don't have all of the training, they might know, okay, what are the right questions to ask, but they just cannot use the portals to get their answer that efficiently as more seasoned professionals. So that's why I'm very excited for AI to make that part a lot better. And also, the final conclusion that I've been slowly getting is that Security Copilot might become something after all. The development they made the first year with the main product wasn't that interesting, but now when they've brought in these Security Copilot agents, it's slowly starting to look better and better and more promising. However, the pricing model is still a complete fiasco if I haven't made it clear enough yet. But if they just change that one thing, I think we have a product that's very well built, and in all, I would say that it's very even groundbreaking in the security field if they just get that pricing model fixed out, because no other vendor is really providing a similar type of tool yet. But that's where I'm going to leave it. I said I would be around 40 minutes, and it's been 39 minutes. So that's where I'm going to leave it. If we have any questions, I'd be happy to take them. And there is the QR code to review this session. Thank you.